The emergency beacon signal reached the Zephyrian Fleet command ship 3 hours later, transmitted across subspace at frequencies that bent reality around them. Fleet Admiral Zach Thule received the automated distress call while reviewing casualty reports from the ongoing human extermination campaigns. The message was brief and made no sense. Unknown energy entity. Entire column eliminated. Nature of threat unclear. Requesting immediate orbital bombardment of coordinates. Zach Thule's 4 eyes narrowed as he processed the information. The humans were primitive, barely beyond nuclear technology. Their weapons couldn't penetrate Zephyrian energy shields, and their military tactics were predictable and inefficient. What kind of energy entity could eliminate 50 shock troopers and 3 heavy weapons platforms? "Navigator," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 species in the name of the Empire. "Set course for the coordinates in that distress signal. I want to see what kind of trick these humans think they can play." The massive command ship, larger than most human cities, adjusted its orbit around Kepler 442b. Its sensors immediately began scanning the battlefield where Marcus had made his stand. What they found defied every law of physics in the Zephyrian databases. "Sir," reported the sensor technician, his voice tight with confusion, "I'm reading massive energy residue in that area, but the signatures don't match any known technology. It's as if something was converting matter directly into energy. But that should be impossible without antimatter reactors." "Show me visual," Zach Thule ordered. The main screen flickered to life, displaying the ruined research station and the surrounding area. Scattered across the landscape were the twisted remains of Zephyrian equipment and the energy-drained corpses of his soldiers. But what drew the Admiral's attention was the figure standing motionless in the center of the destruction. From this distance, it looked almost human, but the energy readings said otherwise. Waves of force emanated from the creature in patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if reality itself was being warped around it. "Is that a human?" asked the navigation officer, his voice betraying the first hint of uncertainty Zach Thule had heard from his crew in years. "Impossible," the Admiral replied, but even as he said it, doubts began to form in his mind. The Empire's historical databases contained references to species that had undergone awakening events, evolutionary leaps that transformed them from physical beings into something far more dangerous. But those were theoretical scenarios, warnings from the ancient texts that most modern Zephyrians dismissed as mythology. "Sir, the entity appears to be looking directly at us," the sensor technician reported, his voice climbing in pitch. On the screen, the figure had indeed turned to face the sky, and even across hundreds of kilometers of space, Zach Thule felt as if it were staring directly into his soul. Then, impossibly, it began to rise from the surface. "Energy readings are spiking," the technician shouted. "Sir, it's coming this way. Raise shields." "Charge all weapons," Zach Thule commanded, but part of him knew it would make no difference. The ancient warnings spoke of beings who could manipulate energy and matter at the quantum level, creatures who existed partially outside normal space-time. If this was truly one of the awakened, then his entire fleet was already doomed. Marcus felt the massive alien vessel's attention like a weight pressing down on his consciousness. Through his enhanced perception, he could sense the fear beginning to spread through its crew, could feel their weapons charging and their shields activating. They still didn't understand what they were dealing with, still thought this was a problem they could solve with superior firepower. He pushed himself away from the planet's surface, his form shifting between matter and energy as he rose through the atmosphere. The knowledge he had absorbed from the dead Zephyrians told him everything he needed to know about their fleet composition, their weaknesses, their command structure. More importantly, it told him about their plans for Earth and the rest of humanity. The extermination was already underway. Orbital bombardments were reducing human cities to radioactive craters while ground forces eliminated any survivors. Billions of innocent people were dying while he had been trapped on this backwater world, playing soldier with conventional weapons that couldn't even scratch alien shields. That was going to change. Marcus reached the edge of space and paused, taking in the full scope of the Zephyrian fleet. Hundreds of vessels, from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts, all bristling with weapons designed to crack planets. It should have been an intimidating sight, but instead, he felt only cold fury. The lead ship opened fire first, streams of plasma and particle beams converging on his position. Marcus let the weapons pass through his phased form, then solidified just long enough to absorb their energy and redirect it back at its source. The feedback overloaded the ship's weapon systems, causing a cascade of explosions that rippled along its hull. Admiral Zakthul watched in horror as his flagship's primary weapons destroyed themselves trying to target the human entity. "All ships, open fire! Concentrate everything on that creature!" The entire fleet responded, filling the space around Marcus with enough destructive energy to sterilize a continent. But the human had learned to exist between dimensions, to phase in and out of normal reality at will. The barrage passed harmlessly through empty space while he moved among the ships like a ghost, touching their hulls and draining their power systems. One by one, the mighty vessels of the Zephyrian fleet went dark as Marcus absorbed their energy and turned it against them. But he wasn't just destroying ships. He was learning from them, downloading their databases, absorbing the knowledge and memories of their crews. With each contact, he grew stronger and gained deeper understanding of the Empire's true scope. The Zephyrians weren't just attacking humanity, they were in the process of eliminating 17 different species across the galaxy. Billions upon billions of sentient beings had already died to feed the Empire's endless hunger for resources and territory. Earth was just the latest target in a campaign of genocide that stretched back thousands of years. Marcus felt the weight of all those lost civilizations, all those extinct species, all those voices silenced forever. The fury that had driven him from the planet's surface transformed into something colder and more purposeful. This wasn't just about saving humanity anymore, it was about justice for every world the Empire had destroyed. He reached the command ship and materialized on its bridge, his form crackling with absorbed energy from 100 destroyed vessels. The surviving crew members scrambled for their weapons, but their shots passed harmlessly through his partially phased body. Admiral Zakthul stood frozen at his command station, all four eyes wide with terror as he finally understood what he was facing. "You're one of the awakened," he whispered in perfect English, the words torn from his consciousness by Marcus's presence. "But that's impossible. Humans are too primitive, too young as a species." "You made us evolve faster," Marcus replied, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Every time you killed one of us, you fed the quantum field that connects all human consciousness. You turned our deaths into a catalyst for transformation." The Admiral's worst fears were confirmed. The ancient warnings spoke of species that grew stronger through conflict, civilizations that used suffering and death as stepping stones to transcendence. The Empire had encountered them before, eons ago, and the result had been catastrophic. "Your people need to know what you've awakened," Marcus continued, approaching the command station with deliberate slowness. "They need to understand the consequences of trying to exterminate humanity." He placed his glowing hand on the ship's communication array, his consciousness merging with its quantum entanglement network. In an instant, he was connected to every Zephyrian vessel in the galaxy, every command post, every military installation, every government facility. His message was simple and broadcast simultaneously to the entire Empire. "I am Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez, United States Marine Corps. 40 minutes ago, your forces tortured me to death on a human colony world. I have returned to deliver humanity's response to your campaign of extermination. Every world you attack, every human you kill will create more like me." We are no longer the primitive species you thought you could easily conquer. We are awakening to our true potential, and we will not be victims any longer. Withdraw from all human systems immediately, or face the consequences of your actions. Across the Empire, panic spread through military and civilian populations alike. The ancient warnings had become reality, and there was no protocol for dealing with awakened beings. Some commanders ordered immediate retreat from human space. Others, too proud or too frightened to accept defeat, prepared for a fight they couldn't possibly win. Marcus released his connection to the communication network and turned back to Admiral Zakthul. The alien leader was trembling, his 4 eyes darting around the bridge as if looking for an escape route that didn't exist. "Your choice," Marcus said, his form beginning to shift and flow like liquid starlight. "Withdraw peacefully or join the ranks of the extinct species in your empire's databases. But understand this, humanity is no longer alone in the galaxy. Every world you've destroyed, every civilization you've exterminated, they live on through us now. Their memories, their knowledge, their desire for justice, we carry them all." Admiral Zakthul looked into those glowing eyes and saw the accumulated wisdom and fury of 1,000 dead civilizations. He activated his personal communicator with shaking hands. "All Zephyrian forces, this is Fleet Admiral Zakthul. Immediate order. Withdraw from all human systems. Do not engage human forces under any circumstances. Repeat, immediate withdrawal from all human space." Marcus nodded once and began to dematerialize. "Smart choice. But remember, Admiral, we're watching now. We're always watching." As the bridge fell silent except for the hum of damaged systems, Zakthul stared at the empty space where the impossible human had stood. The ancient texts spoke of the awakened as harbingers of change, entities that appeared when the universe itself demanded balance. For the first time in his long military career, the Admiral wondered if the Empire had finally encountered something it couldn't conquer. In the void between the stars, Marcus Rodriguez began his journey back to Earth, carrying with him the memories of the dead and the promise of humanity's transformation. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted irrevocably. Humanity was no longer prey. They had become something else entirely. Something that would ensure the galaxy's tyrants thought twice before targeting innocent worlds. The age of human awakening had begun.